Good news you can use whatever phone, yeah. She got the good news you can use. Good news you can use for your life. So listen up, everybody. Listen up, everybody. She got the good news you can use. Good news you can use for your life. If you wanna get the info that'll help you throughout your life, yeah.
Hello, and welcome again to another edition of The Boomer Beat. This is a limited series where I am talking with folks about the would have, should have, could have of their lives. And if they had just made a different decision, how different their lives might have been today. Joining me is Charlie Weatherspoon, someone I haven't seen since high school. But all I remember about him is that he was extremely smart. And if I'm not mistaken, Charlie, weren't you the valedictorian of the class?
Yeah, valedictorian. What's another thing called?
The salutatorian?
Yeah, I was valedictorian, Mr. McKinleyite, and I think people have said it that I might have been the first black valedictorian in McKinley's history.
You were. I'm sure of
I,
that.
I don't I don't know all that, but that's what people have said. So
I'm sure of that. So, and I can tell you now, all these years later, I had a crush on you because I love smart men. So, no, seriously, I have a smart husband. So, I my track record on that has been consistent.
well,
So, just letting you know. All right, very good. All right, so we're talking about our journeys and, you know, if things had been a little different. So, tell us about your upbringing and how you got to where you are now.
okay. Well, I'll start on a plantation in Mississippi where I was born, and I think I was like 8 or 9 years old when my mother decided that she wasn't going to, let her kids be on this plantation, going to take them up north. And I guess she visited Chicago, where a lot of folks from Mississippi were going, and she said, "Nah, I can't raise my kids here." So she ended up in a place called Canton, Ohio, where she had uncles and aunts and some roots, and that's kind of the story on that. And the plantation was interesting for me because I was young. I didn't know anything else. You had, things you could do. You had friends you can play with, all that kind of stuff. And cotton wasn't that deep to me. So every night I'd go out when I was a little kid and with my little sack and pick a few pieces of cotton and give me 25 cents. So I was happy. And it was a happy place because I think the community was a lot of family, a lot of folks around you. Uh, Food was great, things of that nature. You didn't know about the other parts of the world. So for me, I hated leaving because it was such a fun place. All my friends were there. Then they started going to Chicago, places like that, and so I ended up in Canton, Ohio. A kid with a Southern accent, as you say, maybe smart with a Southern accent. So they put me in speech class, and I'm like, "What am I doing in such and such class?" And I was the smartest kid in the class. All the things with the spelling bees and all that kind of stuff. I did all that well, but I'm like, I'm in this class, for such and such because I used to say things like y'all because they picked me to do the invitation for the parents who came, and I want to say thank y'all for coming. The words like chunk, uh, and all those kind of things were very very much part of my vocabulary. I guess over time they kind of disappeared, but I was definitely the Southern kid coming into the Ohio community, and I loved and I loved it there too because you met friends, small community, inner city community, church, things of that nature, and they just took you, and it was strong family. There was no such thing as one person having to do anything. The whole community just rallied around you, and then I started playing things called athletics, and it became even more so. Folks rallied, they know who you were, you're having fun. So in both of those times, and in the plantation and when I got to Canton, under conditions I didn't know a whole lot about because we lived in what they call the neighborhood or impoverished to a certain degree, but it was fun and folks loved you. I mean, that's the one thing about all my life is that the community has poured a lot of love into me, and they've kind of grown me up to the point where a sense of humility, but a sense of pride in who you are, and that you don't feel like you're less than. you feel that, hey, I can do anything because these people around me, the church, the school, the principals, the teachers, my friends in school, they always are like, yo, man, everybody is pushing you to the highest heights. So all those things got me into from McKinley to Harvard, all those places, and I always did well in school. And people encourage you. It wasn't like they say, "Oh, he's just smart," And they say, "Oh, why can't you be like Charlie?"
Yes, exactly.
Not just because
Exactly.
your grades, but my mother taught us to behave well and to be respectful to people. So all those things were part of it. We came from the South. It was always yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am. And you see kids saying things back to their parents, go, "Ooh," it's gonna be crazy up in here. So, but so we weren't allowed to do those things. So we came from an environment where all those things were very, very much part of who we were. And then we all, my brothers, sisters, they all were pretty smart, and they strove to be the best they could be, and we had that kind of support. So that was the beauty of it all, and it got me through Harvard, through McKinley. I think I was probably in a class in grade school where we were a mixed class of all the smart kids, and we had the opportunity going into the seventh and eighth grade, I think, to
Mhm.
ABC programs and things of that nature. Some of my good friends, some of my best friends, they decided, because they were a year behind me, they decided to go on to the ABC or whatever program it was and go to some of the private schools that were taking kids from all over. I decided, because being an athlete, I'm like, nah, I'm not doing that. I'm gonna play football and basketball at Harvard and football and follow my brother's footstep at Canton McKinley. So it kind of drove me to balance that. I didn't just want to go away. And so that was important to me. So sports kind of dictated some of my choices in the sense of schools I went to after the sixth grade. So
Let me ask this question. Well, a couple of things. First of all, I've never heard anyone say that they were sad to leave a plantation. So that kind of surprised me. But then you talked about the sense of community and family. And so I get that. And really not knowing what all of that meant back
yeah,
then. But as far as your intelligence goes, what, that was developed in the South, or
yeah,
did
yeah.
it?
No, you have excellent point, and that's what I when I look back on it, when my mother had moved earlier, and we had to go live with my grandmother, so we had to go to what they call a city school in the South, and I was the smartest kid there by far. So that little one room or whatever kind of place that we grew up in, or the school we went to in the South, really taught us a great deal. I never thought about it because it's like I'm just going to school and jumping on the bus, because I didn't like it in the beginning, because like, oh man, got to go to school. I can just play all day. Now I got to go to school. My sister said, "Come on, boy," and so you had to drag me, and I do all kinds of crazy stuff not to go to school. But finally, I guess it hit sooner or later. And I love school, love the teachers and things of that nature. But I never really looked back and said like, wow, why are you the smartest kid? Once I went to my grandmother's, my mother came north to stay with my grandmother for a year. It's like I was so far ahead of the other kids who were in, the what you call the city schools.
Mhm.
He picked on me, things of that nature, because of, boy from the South, from the country, as they
From the
call it, because it's still South. But that was the whole thing that I saw, and that carried on. It was, those teachers who were very, very good at developing and helping those students grow and be tops. Because you're talking about, all the HBCUs and things. Those kids were coming from there and going there and doing things. So they're not, limited. And I think it was the time, and I think even at Washington School where I came north, and also at Harvard, it's that it was a special kind of teacher who saw something, and they pretty much helped you through that process. You weren't intimidated by them. They want to see you do better. And that to me, it was some of the greatest teachers, as I go through history of teaching, that there ever was. I don't know what they got paid, or what they were very respected, and the way they treated students. They wanted you to succeed. I don't know what diversity was, all this kind of thing. All my teachers, white, black, whatever, women, men, they all just were interested in seeing these kids succeed. And so I just rode the wave at the end of the day. And the wave was very, did great things for me. Got
Now
me
you
from,
were
yeah.
you were an outstanding athlete. So, because you played basketball and football, and you were great in both of them. How were you able to maintain that balance between being a great athlete and being a great student? They normally don't match up.
Yeah, and I think it's all that background. And my mother being, a woman who pretty much just went to the seventh grade because she decided, like, look, I don't want to be here. I'm 15, 16. I get married. Don't have to be doing such and such. So she kind of dropped out early, but we always had the discipline around us. No one said like, "Boy, go in there and do your homework." You knew you had homework, so you went and did it. And the
Mhm.
thing about it was what we call later on the street life, which is very glamorous, and you want to go out there and do such and such. But there are things you couldn't do until you finish your homework, and then it got to be like a habit. It's like, okay, let me go do this right now. Because a lot of people like to put it off. I'll do this later. Mine is like, let's get this done. I like it. That's the other thing. So it was something that became part of. It was like in athletics, like working out. You started to enjoy the process of doing things, and that's where it combined. Because athletics is extremely disciplined, especially for top-notch athletes. Is that when everybody's out there going to the clubs, you're at the park working out, you're
Right.
doing such and such, you're at the Y, you're doing such and such. And so you're disciplined. And I think the educational part and the athletic part, came together very well. And from that perspective.
Well, let me say you're the only black man that I have ever known who went to Yale. Now, there may be some I just didn't know they went there, but you're the only one. Was Yale your first choice?
Uh yes, from the standpoint once I started looking at schools. When I first came out here, remember I had a brother who was all world in basketball and went into the pros. So my whole thing and for our whole city, for the guys who were athletes, things like we looked at the Big Ten, all those places. We got a scholarship. That's where we want to go because that was what we saw on because the athletic side was strong. So you say, okay, well, if Ohio State or Michigan or Illinois, they come a knocking, that's where I'm going. But I had, counselors and people like around me talking about how smart I was, and I was like, I knew nothing about no Yale, so I didn't know its reputation, the people in town who had gone to Yale, who because Yale recruits at that level, they're the alumni recruit, and Steve Rankin, who was wonderful to me. Steve Rankin recruited me, and a guy named Rodney Gordon had already gone to Yale. He was 2 years ahead of me, and he was there. So they start saying things to you like, "Oh, you're smart. You can go to so and so, and all these other places." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I'll talk. I'll talk to him. I'll take the recruiting trips." So once the other teams are like, "Yeah, you can walk on. You do this." I'm going like, "Nah." And then I found out these places called the Ivy League, and all these schools that are top schools in the system of education. I was going like, okay, I guess I'm made for this kind of stuff, and I never thought about not getting in any of them because my whole thing's like and maybe it's ego, maybe it's whatever it is, maybe pride, whatever. It's like, look, valedictorian. I did well on my SATs, especially for an African American, all those kind of things. I played football. Uh, I was, I guess vice chairman, something of, the whatever you have it in high school and that kind of stuff. So I did those kind of activities. So I was very, very much involved in all the stuff. And it was like, okay, these people think this place is something special and they keep telling me about it. So I'm finding more and more about it. And that, it's hard to do this, hard to get in. So I'm like, okay. And plus, at the end of the day, I have to be truthful about that. They had a top notch football team, one of the tops in the country. And I looked at Cornell, Columbia. My brother wanted me to go visit Harvard because his running buddy, a guy named James Brown, who does sports stuff and a top guy in the league. James Brown and my brother played an all-star game together, and he went to Harvard. And James Brown is still doing well. And my brother said, "Yeah, man, James Brown went there." And I think Zach Sanford, one of the coaches
Hmm.
who played at Boston Celtics, coached there. And he's like, "Man, you should go to." I'm going like, I don't want to go there. So the whole thing about it, he was pushing Harvard because that's all he knew, and he knew people there. But the whole thing about the and going to the Yale experience, and everything else is like it felt right. And one good advice my brother gave me about recruiting and things like he said, go to some place where you feel like they want you, not for your athletics, not for yourself, but they want you. They want you to be here. And because Rodney Gordon was there and he showed me around and the coach and everything else, because Yale coach at the time, all of them was from the Ohio area.
Mm.
Our head coach was one of those people who were from the from one of the top Woody Hayes' tree in Miami, Ohio. And he had about three or four coaches. One of the coaches just passed, Richie Pont, he went to Timken, and he was good friend with a mentor of mine named Phil Coleman. And I didn't know that till I
Mm.
went. And he was
Mm.
also with the
Councilman
Black
Coleman.
Legends and all that kind of stuff. And he recruited us. And I found all that out, found more when he just passed away, just had his memorial service, but all that stuff. But it was home. It felt good, and so that was important.
Let me ask you, do you think that your path, I mean, hindsight's always 2020 and it's hard to kind of say, but do you think your path would have been different had you not gone to Yale, had you gone to a Big Ten school or, an HBCU, for example? What did
Yeah,
Yale give you that you don't think any other institution could have given you?
I think it's the for me at that age, it was the combination of a great environment, great education, and athletics. Because you have to when you're dealing in athletics that level and you feel good about what you're doing, you're a decent athlete, you want to combine the two. And the thing about Yale was like it did that without me knowing it. Going to the Big Ten had been great. Then I'd been going like, well, Jack, at Ohio State or Illinois, maybe I'll go pro, so you're thinking differently. You're thinking more about the athletic side, and based on schools and everything else, I felt that I would do well in school no matter where I went. But my choices in the sense of that environment, and at Yale, I lived in a regular, what they call college. Yale is broken into colleges. And, some may call them dorms, whatever. They broke into colleges and they allow you to interact with the general population. It's no
Oh,
such thing as a, football school or this or that. Everything is immersed. And I got to know people who were considered like the 1%, the billionaires, and I got to know people who were on total like no money. They working in the cafeteria just to make it,
I
and
lived in New Haven,
yeah,
and I'm very familiar with Winchester Avenue, that little
yeah, yeah, yeah,
strip
yeah,
over there.
yep, yep, yep. So the whole issue was the fact that it was that diversity, and then you start learning more and more. Because when my freshman year, I think I spent time with the guy who worked a lot with admissions, and he started talking about it, like, yeah, they got 30,000 people who basically try to get in here, and we take 1,500 from around the world,
Right,
and every country's involved. I'm going like, ooh, I guess this is something. I guess
right.
there's something special about this place, other than having a top notch football team and good this and good that. So I learned more as I started to immerse myself into what Yale was. And so then, as you say, hindsight is that I was totally blind to what it meant until later on in life. Till you start hanging out with certain people and you're getting certain interviews and you get to talk to so and so, and it's just like me and you talking. It ain't like oh yeah, yeah, oh I know so and so. I know this guy who's a billionaire and this guy's such and such. Let me call him on the phone. That kind of stuff. And my teammates, which are always important, be it McKinley, be it Yale, be it Harvard, whatever. That's a family. It's an incredible family and always will be. And I'm still close to my Hartford teammates, my McKinley teammates, my Washington teammates, and then on and on and on. Now my Yale teammates. It's just there's a family there, there's uniqueness there that transcends all things. You know, race, gender, it just transcends it all, and it brings you together in a way that it's almost magical because it's like, oh, just like I know you. It's like, oh, that's Bev,
Right.
and I think,
Yeah, that's me.
yeah, I always use the thing that my friend Andy Gibson's uh, aunt used to say when I'd be at their reunion. I'm the only one at the reunion. Everybody else is cousins and such. It's like, who's that? And Martha Levert say, oh, that's just Charlie Weatherspoon. you know,
Yeah, that's just Charlie,
he
right?
just here. He don't no, he's just part of the family. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And you get and that kind of stuff is the things that you learn when you say you go to those kind of places. It's not isolating you. It's making you a part of the whole community, and the whole community embraces you.
Did you ever have a desire or interest in going back to Canton after you graduated, or even back to Mississippi? Or did you
Uh,
feel that there was a greater things out there beyond where you had grown up that you needed to accomplish?
Mississippi, no. And my mother always said, like, nope, I don't want to go back there. So my mother's always that kind of way. I never saw Mississippi as, those kind of opportunities. I probably see it more now in the sense of helping communities and things of that nature. But Canton, yeah, a little bit because, as I said, Steve Rankert, who recruited me, the Rankert family, the Timken family, those kind of folks. So there were opportunities that I could look at, but the opportunities weren't big enough and wide enough in the growth. So for me, having gone to Yale and things of that nature, I was looking at a more of a city that had, because I pretty much landed in Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh
Mhm.
was that when I landed, it was like the top five Fortune 500 city, which means it had the top largest companies in the world right there, and it was had a small town kind of thing to it, and it was close enough to Canton, and that means I can do banking, which I was in. I can go to Westinghouse. There's 1,000 different things I can do, and also they had a strong Yale community. So I liked a place like that. I looked at New York and said, nah, New York is just, and some people just love New York. And I had good friends who were doing things there and finance things. But for me, Pittsburgh came the perfect place. If I was going to do Ohio, it'd probably be more like a Cleveland or a Columbus because the opportunities that you have to do different things. But I chose Pittsburgh after looking at all those places, and it turned out well. It kind of helped me, as you say, leaving a Canton and leaving Mississippi to grow and to see other things. And then throughout life, international stuff, all that kind of stuff. Because it's things that you don't think about when you're hanging out in the hood in Canton. You don't think about like, oh yeah, maybe I'll go to France and maybe I'll go to you go like, yeah, maybe I'll go downtown to Tusk and go to the Golden Pheasant and get a hot dog. It's like you're thinking about simple stuff. And that's all, you're part of what you know. And my mother said she picked cotton, and then she worked at a nursing home, that kind of stuff. And my brother kind of brought us out of it a little bit because my brother, he played and he was all over the place and taught us different things. We got exposed to different stuff through him. And then you start saying, oh, okay, there's another world out there. And through that, and then my own personal experience, you're going like, wow, now it gets tough to go back to a lot of places. You're going like, nah, you know, culturally, everything is happening. From the standpoint of diversity, the standpoint of who's getting what kind of jobs, all those kind of things, the opportunities that lay before you. You kind of start going, I'll stick over here. But I did come back to Canton more from a not-for-profit perspective when we started something called Start County Out of Poverty, that Mr. Rankert and a few business guys started to literacy, housing, everything. And they started that, and I came back to be on that board, representing the community and also representing, African Americans, things of that nature, because a lot of trust, a lot of things there. So, and I was happy to be back because I still to today. I mean, I love my community. I love the people there. They were my family, friends, people you know. So you don't leave them. And I came back all the time for for the summer, for Christmas, all those kind of things. My mother was there, so it's always been part of my quote unquote, as they use that DNA, that blood, more so than any other place. Because I was too young when we left Mississippi to really get a feel for how that place was. I went back there when I was in banking to the plantation. I was like, man, this thing's like a couple of blocks. It's like, gee. And we thought it was like to walk from our house down to my uncle's house, way down the road, and the good the place where the plantation owners lived, all that kind of stuff, and you're going like, man, this is like awful small.
Charlie, let me ask you, because you have done some wonderful things, and now you're the CEO of your own company that you've built from the ground. Is there anything that you think you would have done differently, in hindsight, knowing all that you know now? Any type
Yeah,
of
yeah.
direction?
I mean, I think the thing is because we all grew up to be at one company, like if folks went to Timken Roller Bearing, whatever, for all your life.
Right.
You just move up the ranks. And that's probably what I would have done if I had left Mellon and Pittsburgh, go to Denver, back, and then people brought different opportunities. So make like, oh, okay, I don't have to. They're gonna pay me more money over here. I don't have to do this. But I'd probably been at one place, Mellon or whatever, for 30, 40 years to retirement kind of stuff. And that's the one thing that was different. So once you go outside that and look at different things, like, oh, it's the skill set. It's not the place. And these skill sets, whether you want to do it for profit, around the world, these are essential, and they're very important, and how you can help others. And then you got your network. So you bring all that together and say, yeah, I mean, I still know people at Mellon, I still know banking, I still know folks at so and so at DuPont, all those other places, and you're going like, but I don't have to be here. Just like Canton, I don't have to be in Canton to do certain things and even try to influence certain things. It's good to be on the ground and that kind of stuff, but at the end of the day, if you know how to position things, you can be effective in what you want to do.
Is there anything left on your bucket list? Or do you have a bucket list?
Bucket lists, I think, from the business perspective, is to help young businesses, young folks around the globe grow and understand their potential. Because once you do, a business is once you understand banking and all the other parts of business, it's pretty fundamental. But it's finding folks with talent who have some ideas and things of that nature who want to do certain things and bringing them what I call the fractional CFO. Someone who can come in and help you for a couple of dollars instead of charging you $150,000 and say, look, this is what you got to do. Let me help you do this. Let me help you do that. And show them the ropes so they don't have to make certain mistakes and go through certain things, especially small businesses, minority businesses. And now we got some global stuff going on with the connection between what we call the sixth diaspora, which is the sixth region of Africa, which is we got an entity called CDAD, which is a Council for Economic Development of African Descent, which is a group of young, mostly young African guys who are doing business in the U.S. and are looking to do business back in their continent, be it Nigeria, Namibia, Zambia, South Africa, all those places, but trying to help them with that connection as they do certain things and help them understand, because they're younger and they got great ideas, but if you don't put them together right, then it's for naught. So trying to help them, and because the world is growing like that. When a long time ago I read a book that kind of talked about that, and it was just talking about all the things that are going to happen over time, and that there was going to be a global economy instead of a local economy. And now you got it going on. I was fortunate enough to as a not-for-profit organization to go to China and see the real China, because the people who I was going with were they were pretty major and celebrity, state dinners and all that kind of stuff. And to not have them go to Africa, I really want to go, but I haven't gone there yet. But to deal with real Africans and the commissioners and folks on the ground, things of that nature, and a lot of those folks, is that you learn so much. And what you do learn is the fact that there's so much in common. Other
Yes.
language, other than culture, is like,
Yes.
as if you're at Timken Roller Bearing, you're building and you're doing roller bearings, they can use around the world. So,
Exactly.
but it's the language, things of that nature, and that's the thing you learn. And I think is that the major thing is that people are just people. They all want the same things, and for me, what it gave me when I was young was a sense of hope and possibilities, and you want everyone to be able to feel that, because people are going to define you by color or by, where you are and say, oh, well, you're this, you're that. And it's like, no, you're not that. You're Beverly Mahone. You came from that little town, but your talent, your skills is more so is more than that. And don't get pigeonholed to like, well, that's just so and so, so and so. They can't, they can't, like artists and singers and athletes is like, oh, well, they went to a small school, they can't do this, or oh, they didn't go to such and such, so they can't do this. So my whole thing is opening it up and saying, yes, you can, and but you got to put in the time, got to put in the effort. There's no magic to it. People might think it's magic, like playing the slot machines, without just in Vegas, or playing lottery. It's not like that. To me, is the fact that one thing came from football and being a decent student is that you got to put in the time. You got to put in the time. You got to put in the work. And we look at shortcuts and street stuff that happens, all that kind of stuff. It's the shortcut, because if I've known guys, and you probably known people too, it's because I come from the hood, who decide like, look, if I sell a little of this, we call them recreational pharmaceuticals, then I can make a few $1,000s a month, and a few $1,000s a month can put you in good shape in Canton until that doesn't exist anymore. And then what else are you going to do? So people get caught up looking at those easy routes, but in the long term, it's going to be, how did you apply yourself? What kind of work did you do? The whole sound purposeful thing, the spiritual thing. It's like, how does it feel when you finish, when such and such? Because the dollar's important, that kind of stuff, but it's not the most important thing. And someone sent me something, and he said, some guy was telling a person, look, if I gave you $1 million, today, what would you do with it? He said, oh yeah, man, that'd be great. That's great. So what if I tell you, if I gave it $1 million, you'd be dead tomorrow? And they said, oh, okay, I guess I should be real grateful that I'm here today. And that's the most important thing. So it teaches you a basic lesson about who you are as a person, how you show up, and what people think of you when it's all said and done. And that you're making your community, your family, your friends proud, not because it's special, but that's because that's what they pretty much saw you as. And just show up and be you.
Well, on that note, we have run over. I've just been so in awe of just hearing you and listening to your words of wisdom and just your journey. It's just been wonderful. So I do thank you, and I apologize that we did run a little over.
Oh no, it's perfect, because I got to go an appointment around 1 o'clock. So that's perfect.
All right, very good. Well, listen, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to this edition, a special edition of the Boomer Beat with my special guest today, Charlie Weatherspoon. And remember this, you have gifts to give the world. So find your own unique voice and prosper. And remember to stay empowered along your journey.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, Bev. Take care of yourself. Appreciate
All right.
it. Okay.
You're very welcome.
Stay blessed. Okay.
Good news you can use for your life.